Okay, great. Right. Yeah, so thank you for coming. We will be doing stuff in the chat to begin with, and then come off mute later and talk individually. So for the moment, could you just drop your name in the chat and give a reason that you came today? And if you could go on mute, that would be really awesome for now. Let's have a look. Thank you. Okay. Can't see anything in the chat. Louisa, why did you come today? Hi, Lauren. I'd love some feedback on your resume and your next move. Okay. And what about you, Louisa? What are you hoping to get from today? Actively job hunting with 3 possible leads lined up this week. Okay, this is very, very nice. Thank you both for coming and thank you for interacting. And if you're up for it, one thing that you're grateful for can be small, can be big, anything at all. I'm grateful that I've got a warm drink because I was getting cold earlier.
Yes.
What are you grateful for today? I'm going to say warm drink. Opportunities to learn. Very nice, Lauren. Okay, what are you grateful for, Louisa? Can be something tiny. You know what? Maybe it'd just be easier if we came off. Let's just do that instead. We'll still go through the structure, but yeah. So Lauren's grateful for the opportunity to learn. Louisa, what about you?
That's awesome. I was a bit stressed this past week because I don't want to sell the flat that I've been letting out to, but that raises problem. If it's on the market for 6 months without tenants, then I'm not getting the income to pay the mortgage. But as the tenants, they've expressed an interest in buying the flat, so hopefully that's going to
Wow,
speak.
amazing. That's extremely something to be grateful for. Great, thank you for sharing that. Okay, so why we're here today, this is the thing I see a lot with people and myself, of course, when you're going into interviews. If you work in tech, maybe you have a tendency to list your skills, right? So you're good at your job. You're very good at your job potentially, but you may have had it. You may be a career changer. You may have come in from somewhere else. You've got experience, but often when somebody asks you what you actually contribute and what you bring that somebody else wouldn't necessarily bring, it can be difficult to find an answer. You can go quiet. You can think, well, I'm not sure if I actually, what did I actually contribute in that situation? You can list your tools. I know Python, I know JavaScript, but when it comes to framing yourself in an interview, it can be quite difficult. So this is what today is about. Or you say, which I had the other day, one of my clients said, well, we did this and then we did that and we did this. And I was like, okay, but what did you do? What was your contribution? They're not hiring the team, they're looking to hire you. And it's not because you haven't contributed. It's not because you haven't done anything. It's not because you didn't turn up on the day. It's because sometimes we contribute in ways that we don't stop to look at properly. It's not easily quantifiable. Maybe we don't have a language. So this is just a simple structure we're going to work through, and you'll get a worksheet, which I can share with you now if you'd like me to, which is basically just go through, apply the principles and use it whenever you want. So I'm going to send the link to you in the chat and I will send it to you afterwards as well. Okay, and if you have any questions, just say, I have a question or drop something in the chat. So we're not, just to be clear, we can look at your resume, Lauren. Of course, you asked that before the call and I said that was fine. We could do a bit of chatting about that. We're not here to write your CV or practice an elevator pitch. We're here to find the things that you've already done that maybe you haven't counted or accounted for yet and put a name to them. So by the end of the session, hopefully you'll have a moment where you think, oh, actually, that was me. I did that. And that's something I can talk about, whether it's when you're networking or an interview. Okay, so that's the whole point of this session. Right. So before we start just walking through the exercises, I'm by the way, I'm just reading off the script, so that's why I keep looking up. If at any point you think, well, this is too obvious, or anyone could have done that, write it down anyway. That's a really good sign, actually, because you're like, it's that moment where you're dismissing things that you've done because you think they're trivial, or you think they're not specialized, or you think, well, anybody would have done that because that's just the way you operate. You think maybe that everybody else does that too, but trust me, they don't. Often it's the things that feel obvious to you that aren't the things that feel obvious to everyone else in the room. And I know, as someone with ADHD, sometimes I have a very strong tendency to think that just because I get something or understand it or know it, that everybody else must just get it and know it too. So it's definitely not just a neurodivergent thing, but you know, it can feel very believable that you think, well, I did that, so why would it matter? Before we dive in, if you're live here today, which Louisa and Lauren you are, there are a couple of bonuses at the end for you. And at the end, I'll tell you how we can work together if you want to. Right, let's get into it. Okay, so I don't know if you have a pen and paper, or you can use the worksheet, or you could just listen. You'll get a replay of this anyway. And we're going to go back into the chat for this. So in the chat, write one thing you did recently that actually mattered. Now, what do I mean by that? So it's not your job title. It's not something your team did or a group of you did, or you did in a volunteering capacity. It's a specific thing that you did that made a difference. Could be last week, could be last month, could be, you know, any time. I'll give you some examples. So we're just warming up with this. And if you feel any pressure or if you want any clarification, just let me know. Okay, it's all fine. So here are some examples. Something kept going wrong and you got to the bottom of it. A client at work couldn't explain what they wanted and you figured it out. A conversation was going around in circles and you did something to get it moving. Something was slow or broken and you fixed it. Someone was struggling and you helped them through it. So if you can think of an example of something that you did along those lines, something that mattered and had an outcome, no matter how small, just pick one and type it into the chat. And if you're struggling to think of something, no problem, we can talk it through. Putting you on the spot here. Now, if you're not able to, if you're able to think of something, say, you know, tell me. But if you're not able to think of something, tell me as well, and then we'll figure it out together. Oh, okay. So Lauren says, created social media posts for a local group and resulting 28 people signing up for an event. Wow, that's like the whole thing. That's amazing. All right, cool. That's brilliant. Okay. Congratulations. Maybe you could do mine. It's all you can think of. That's absolutely great. What we're going to do is, this is a really, I mean, that's a really great example. And we can dig into it a bit more. But we'll still work through the framework and hopefully you'll come up with some other ideas as well as we go through. And what we're going to do is tie it into your stuff that you are actually going to talk about in an interview as well. Louisa says, I had an appointment with a financial advisor, which I set out my plans to sell my flat. As a result, I've received a recommendation of a solicitor and an accountant and have a better idea of how to proceed. You two don't even need this call. You're so awesome already. You've like zipped through to the outcome. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so right. So Lauren created a social media post for a local group. Louisa had an appointment, set out plans, and have received a recommendation. Okay, well, two. Okay, so these are already pretty readable. But what we're going to do is just use a practice here. So make it readable. This is the second step. Make it readable to an outsider. So what you've both done incredibly well, by the way, is articulated what you did. So what we're going to do is just potentially give it a bit more context. So could somebody who doesn't have any context about the situation follow what you wrote? So if there was a work situation, you were describing something, would the person be able to immediately go, oh, I see what you're talking about, I get it? Or would they be like, you're talking about something that I don't quite grasp the context of? So we'll do a work example in a minute, but for instance, when you're working in tech has a lot of shorthand and jargon, and people tend to speak in jargon sometimes, especially when you're talking about things that maybe are on your CV, resume. We tend to speak maybe in a way that we think people want to hear it. And it's very helpful to say things in a way that are easily digestible. Okay. So the example I've given here, which is not really like to do with yours, is if you wrote something like optimize the retention funnel, which is extremely jargony and kind of annoying, lots of buzzwords, then put a sentence underneath it, and we'll do this with yours. Put a sentence underneath it so somebody else outside gets it, so gets a bit more context. So if I said I optimized my retention funnel, I could say something like, by which I mean, I helped make sure customers didn't drop off after they signed up. So somebody can understand what you're talking about. So let's, just for the practice, give some more context to what you've both talked about. So Lauren, Louisa, would you mind asking Lauren a question about what she might, to gain a bit more context about Lauren's example? I think it'd be helpful if we do this together.
Yeah, Lauren, can you tell me more about this local group and what was the purpose of the social media post?
Yeah, great. You can come off mute.
Yeah, it's a local developer group, and what we're doing is creating a workshop and panel to talk about early career development, and also have a workshop about working with AI agents. So it's like a two-part session. So I created like the initial announcement and then like 4 follow-up posts to gain interest.
Great. Okay, so using your example, and that's really good context, and now like we both have a much better idea of what the event was and what your part in it was. Can you write a sentence or two just to give what you said initially a bit more context? Just one sentence, maybe. So like you could add a detail like created social media posts for a local group. What might the group be? And what might the event be? But kind of keep it short, like maybe just a whole other sentence. Is that, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. You can do it out loud if you want. You can do it out loud if you want.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, sorry, go on.
To add on to what I've already wrote, so I created multiple social media posts for a local developer group to publicize a workshop to promote career opportunities and a workshop about AI, and it resulted in 28 people signing up for the event.
Great. Okay, great. So just to give somebody who doesn't have a clue about what your situation is, give them a bit more info. So developer, you can maybe say software developers or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's all just an exercise at the moment, and it obviously depends who you're talking to. But yeah, so we have this thing in our head where we're like, well, I know what happened, and this is kind of the top line of what happened and what, so give people more context immediately so that they connect with you immediately, so that they don't have to come and say, what do you mean by that? Or what kind of posts? Or what was the event? Or what group? Yeah. Okay, so Louisa, should we have a look at yours? You've given some context there. Lauren, do you have any questions you'd like to ask Louisa to pull out a bit more context?
Yes. So what was the benefits? So you said that you received a recommendation for a solicitor and an accountant, but how is that beneficial? How is that a beneficial next step, and what are the outcomes of that result?
Are both necessary for the sale of the flat or certainly legal advice, and also because I've been told I'll have to pay capital gains tax on the sale of the flat, that I've been advised that I should seek the advice of an accountant about that. And so with this in hand, it means that less work. I mean, my brother's been helping me, but it means he won't have to pick up the slack for this. So he'd because the solicitor account both local to me, it's probably easier for me to meet with them.
Okay, so could that be something like, I've received the recommendations, and now the better idea how to proceed, I think, yeah, does lead, as Lauren pointed out nicely, into in what way, so that what, so that potentially you save money because you learn more about capital gains tax avoidance, not avoidance, but what the best path is for you, and so you have more control over the proceedings, right? So you're not
Yes.
relying on other people, apart from the professionals that you're choosing to kind of use their services of. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so that was like an exercise. I'm just wondering if it might be helpful to think about something work related. I think it might be for the purposes of this. I'm just doing a time check. We started at 12, it's 20 past. So we might go to an hour. Is that okay? Are you okay for an hour, Lauren?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's quickly jump on a work example. So, Louisa, you're job hunting. Lauren, you are also job hunting. Am I right in that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So potentially we could pick something off a CV or a question that you had an interview recently. Because the next step, so the first step, just to recap, the first step is to pick something that you did that made some kind of difference to somebody or possibly to yourself. Yeah. The next step, step 2, we just did is give it some context, make it readable or a bit understandable to somebody, an outsider who doesn't necessarily understand the context. Right, so the next step is what was broken or stuck. So when you set about doing the thing that you did, what was the situation before you got involved? What was the thing that wasn't working? We can continue actually with your examples. I think they both work. So an example might be something was breaking and nobody had got to the bottom of it, or a client knew what they wanted, but they couldn't explain it, or the same conversation kept happening in meetings and nothing got decided. These examples may not apply to you, but I would love to know what was the situation before you got involved. You can talk it out or you can put it in the chat. What's your version of that? AKA, what was the problem that needed fixing? Okay, so Lauren's saying the community leader needed help. Great. Why? What? What were they not able to help themselves with? Okay. She was doing a lot on her own. Okay. So there were things that needed doing and she didn't have the capacity to do them all. and not delegating. Oh, hands up if you've ever done a lot on your own and not delegated. Every day, every single day of my life. Oh, poor woman. I'm glad you were there to help. Okay, so Lauren, your situation was the community leader, we've established is she is running an event or co-running an event, right? And in order to do that, she had lots of things to do and she needed help because she was doing it on her own and she wasn't delegating, right? Is that a fair summary? Great. Louisa, what about you? What was the situation before you took the action that you took?
Well, it's an example I gave earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
That-
That's fine.
It's presented quite a stressful situation. So I need to sell my flat because, well, I'd been out of work for a while, and now I've been having difficulty paying the management charge on it in the future.
Okay.
So that's why it's quite a difficult situation to be in. Even if I landed a job next week, it's still a bit of
Yeah. So there's the wider context there is I need to do something about the flat situation. And maybe the more granular thing is that you had to the problem that needed solving at that point was to figure out what to do next, maybe.
Yes.
Or yeah, and which way to do it. So you made an appointment with the financial advisor.
Yes.
So you knew that you needed some more information.
Yes.
Because you didn't have the information you needed, and potentially the confidence that you knew what to do next to proceed with the things that you knew needed doing. Like, I know I need to do something about my flat, but I'm not sure what. So you took action. Okay, so you needed information and your community leader needed support. Great, this is going great. Any questions so far? Okay, we have a little kind of chunk of what the situation was. We know some of the stuff about what you both did about it. Okay, so step 3 was what was broken or stuck. Step 4 is what did you notice? So this, especially when you're presenting in a, I'm going to say work situation, by which I mean like in an interview, or this is where you kind of get to position yourself as I came in and sorted stuff out, or I came in and this is what I did, right? So it's kind of a little bit like the STAR technique. You're describing the situation, you're describing the task in a way, but between those two things is what did you notice? So it's important and people skip it. So before you actually took action, what did you notice? Again, not sure if this applies, but possibly it does. So some examples are you could tell the problem that existed wasn't necessarily where everyone else was looking, or what wasn't what people thought the problem was. An example might be nobody had actually agreed on what they were building if we're talking about a development project. If we're talking about managing some kind of situation, which it sounds like, Louisa, you're doing, even though it's your own situation, you're still managing the situation. You were the person asking the questions that turned out to be important. So what we're trying to look at here is your thinking, how you think. This is what makes your contribution visible, and we can talk about it. So what did you notice? Can you try and answer that question for me? But if you need more clarity, just let me know. Lauren, and you can come off mute if you like.
Well, I did notice that the community leader was kind of hesitating to let things go, like to offload things. So what I
Yeah.
tried to do is communicate better in plenty of time. So if there is something to do with the social media post or the campaign, I will just like have it ready ahead of time. Is this okay? Get feedback initially, so not waiting until she says, oh, have you got the post ready? So to try and put her at ease, because I'm a volunteer, it's not a paid role. I wanted to come across as a reliable person to support her.
Brilliant. Okay, so can I just recap for you what I just heard? Thank you for sharing that. It sounds like you were actually aware of quite a lot of different things. I may need to come back to you because I was trying to write everything down, I didn't. So you noticed her stress or struggle. You knew that there were certain things you could do to help alleviate that stress or struggle. And interestingly, you also said I also wanted to be seen as reliable. So I really like this. This is great. It's like, and feel free to tell me if I'm wrong, but I can both help with the situation, as in get things moving. I can help this person to feel better, and I can position myself as somebody who is that person. Does that cover it?
Yeah, that sounds absolutely right.
Oh, great, great. Well, that's fantastic, because these are all really useful things to note. And obviously we could dig into these a lot more, because I'm just going to go into this for a minute. And feel free to like chat to me if you want. I don't just want to talk at you. So in no particular order, there's some empathy going on, which is your understanding that another person is struggling, and you want to help them to feel better, in, for want of better words. There is action taking, so and strategy and planning. So you're thinking, what can I do to get this moving? And you identified some things that you could do. And you thought, how can I also support myself in this moment? How can I also benefit from this situation, which is completely fine and good and great to think about positioning yourself well. And it's, I want to be seen as reliable, potentially next time they want somebody, they might come back to you, right? Or it's something you can put in your CV. Feel free to jump in. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, I was hoping that, like, through this role, I would meet people, an opportunity to network, an opportunity to build some more soft skills alongside my tech skills that I'm working on. And just like you say, have something, a talking point for interviews, and something to put on my resume as well.
Great. Okay, well, I think we're smashing it so far. So, yeah. So if you make a note of those, you'll get a recording as well and a transcript. I can give you a transcript, yeah. But yeah, so those in noticing that there was a problem that needs solving, whatever that problem might be, you then thought in lots of different directions, and these are really good things to talk about. I'm going to stop there for a second and go to Louisa. So. And also I'm getting a croaky voice, so apologies. So Louisa, what did you notice about your situation, or the situation that you were in? Try and keep it neutral.
Sometimes I observed that my brother was getting quite stressed. Well, as was I. That's not just the financial expense, but that's the emotional burden of what he was taking on. And
Yeah.
I'm going to be speaking to him and the letting agent on a Teams call. I
Okay.
think emotional burden. I mean, emotional effort. I mean that is just a thought. Like, oh, I've got to think about something. I've got to do something. Just be able to relieve that of someone, just it's a huge deal. Even it might say the actual action isn't that big a deal.
And here we go. This is so interesting. There's so many interesting things coming up. In some ways, you're both describing a very similar situation, right? I really don't want to forget what you've just said, because it's so interesting that somebody else needed help and you found yourself able to help, right? Top level. Oh, what was it? I knew I'd forget. What did you say? I wish I could rewind in live. Goodness me, I've completely forgotten what you said. It was a really good point. So he was emotional burden. Oh yeah, that was it. So basically, with both of you, there was possibly some emotional stuff going on, like stress, right? With here your brother, here your community leader. There's also the mental load, which again, hands up, mental load, anyone? Yes, carrying it all the time. When you know what it's like to be dealing with a lot of stuff and you're in a position to help, then you can offer to help. And what I found it also interesting was that you said, even if it wasn't a big deal, even if it's only something small, and that's a very key point, which possibly you both experienced, which is there is actually something I can do. I'm not going to come in and like change the whole world in a day, but there are some small actions I can do to help. Yeah. At the same time, you may have taken what you saw as a small action, but the impact of it was maybe bigger. So yes, we can be realistic and say taking something off somebody's plate may be a small action on your part because it may not feel like much trouble, but it can have a really huge impact on the person, right? If they feel like, oh my God, somebody's taken something off my plate, that can literally make their whole day better. So there's that. But on this, talking about the same thing is when we say things like, oh, it was nothing, or it's just a small thing, or anybody would have done it. Fine, true. But that's a really good time to notice, like you were saying, Lauren, the impact of what we had, the benefits and the outcome. So we don't need to dismiss it as something small. We can acknowledge that it didn't take much effort, potentially, or maybe it did take much effort. But what we mustn't do is dismiss it and pretend like it was nothing, because you are the ones that did it. You are the people that stepped in and offered to help. And that is huge. Lecture over. Any thoughts? What's coming up for either of you? I'd love to know.
Yeah, I think that the thought process has helped me, look at the action and the outcome. And I'd love to try and translate this into some scenarios that I could apply to tech because I'm
Yeah.
a career changer. I don't have those experiences to talk to, but I do have other experiences. So I'd love to know how to use this to shift it into like an interview or, like
Yes.
apply it.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. Okay, so all right, so we've slowed down a bit. So let me just very quickly recap. So we've talked about something that you did that made a difference to somebody or something. Yeah, that was step one. Step two, make it a bit more understandable to an outsider, so give it some context. Okay, this is all going to be applicable to work stuff as well. And we're going to come to that. Step three, what was broken? So what was the situation, i.e. before and after? Yeah, what was the before? What was the situation? Step four, which is kind of a nuance, what did you notice? What was your take on the situation? Why did you step in? Step five, what did you actually do? And that's actually something we covered right in the first question. So what did you actually do? So for instance, you wrote the code and fixed the bug. You were the person asking the questions that kept things on track. Lauren, you created the social media posts. Louisa, you set up an appointment and followed through by getting a recommendation. So you spotted the thing that would have broken later. You stepped in and stopped something getting worse. You stepped in and helped something to get better. So that's the bit we're trying to name as well. So we will tie this into some work examples, but the point of this exercise here, this question, is if you're not sure how you contributed or what you did, what would have gone differently if you hadn't been there? So it's easy to say, well, it wasn't that much, or I just want to help, or it only took me 5 minutes. But if you hadn't been there, what would have happened? So an example, and this is actually about me, I was in a hackathon a few years ago, and somebody jumped on the development task and somebody jumped on the design task and somebody talked about deployment. And I was sitting there going, what am I going to do? And I was asking questions and trying to find edge cases. Well, how is it going to work? How's this app going to work? If we're out of range, for instance, who's going to use this app? How will they have access? What's the security? I was basically asking questions. And when it came to talking about the hackathon afterwards, somebody said, here's the code I wrote. Somebody said, here's the design I came up with. And I was sitting there going, how do I talk about what I did? I feel like I didn't do anything, but I actually was the glue that held it together. So it can be really useful to, again, think about what you did and really break it down. So what would have gone different? What would have gone different if you hadn't been there? Just quickly brainstorm it. We can come off mute. Louisa?
What I'm talking about is a work in progress, but I guess if I'd done nothing, that's my brother would have to take on more and things might have dragged on for longer and it might have ended up possibly in a financially worse situation with the tenants serving notice and then an empty flat.
Yeah, absolutely. So things could have dragged on. Things could have got worse. Things could have stayed the same. But things probably wouldn't have moved forward, right? we'd still be at point A. We're not where we are now as point B, let's say. So what about you, Lauren? You've said I've been in that situation too. Do you want to tell us about that?
About the hackathon that you mentioned, it wasn't that I was asking questions, but it was that I was the only team member that turned up. So one other. So it was just the two of us. And this guy came with his design. He was set on his code. He was so rigid on the product. And he was like,
Right.
oh, but I'm going to do this. But he said, I've got no time to do the presentation. I've got no time to do anything else. And that's what's really important, because that's what's going to sell my idea. So can I trust you with that? And so, yeah, that was the outcome of that, is that we did present, we did have a presentation, we did explain the concept really well. But I was the only one who turned up that day.
Now, this is gold. Now that you're talking about this, we're going to jump onto this example for you, Lauren, okay? Because this is perfect for something to talk about in an interview. What you could do, and not now, but afterwards, is go back and go over the structure that I'm going to give you and go through this example that you've just told me. And it doesn't have to be a big example. It doesn't have to be I led a team, right, over 3 months. It can literally be, this was a situation, there was a hackathon. These were what we think was going to happen, right? We think everyone's going to turn up and do a good job. But in fact, what happened was 2 people turned up, 1 developer and me, and I don't know, we haven't explored what your role was supposed to be. So what you noticed, what was missing, the action that you took. But now we're getting to the crux, which is, and I know you were just summarizing, which is we, I versus we, right? So if you were describing that situation in an interview, and maybe we tidy up a bit and prepare it. But when it comes to talking about your contribution, what we don't want to do is talk about we as a team. We did this, we did that, we did that. You can use that to set context, that's fine. This was a situation, this was our task. Then we go into talking about what you did, what you noticed was broken, what you noticed that other people were thinking, and you thought, well, actually, maybe that's not the issue, or maybe it is, but you have other thoughts about it, and the action that you took. So then we turn it to I, right? I did this. I led this. I decided to do this. You use those nice action words, right? I managed. I led. I don't know, whatever. Decided. And then you talk about what you did. So with this example, can you tell me, let's just do a quick reframe on this. You've already told us the context. Take us through when there was a problem that people weren't turning up, but super quick, like, just bullet points.
Well, I didn't know the person initially because I met them on LinkedIn, and it was just an open, call for team members. So I signed up, and then on the day we arrived, and I could see people milling around, getting into their groups and meeting up with a team. And then there was just me and this other guy stood there on our own, and he kept calling all the other teammates, no answer, no answer, no answer. And we were like, okay, what are we going to do? And he's like, well, I know what we can do because I've prepared something, but I need you to do the presentation. And initially I was disappointed because it was my first hackathon. I was like,
Yeah.
I wanted to hack something.
Yeah, I feel you. I really, really do. It's like, well, I'll be the developer on this. You're like, hang on a minute. Hang on just a minute.
But yeah, but I thought, okay, well, put on your big girl pants now. This is a team effort, and this is what teams do. Like, they make compromise, and they talk about ideas, and they set tasks, and it might not be the task that you want on that day, but if you've agreed to be a team member, then that's what you do.
Okay. Just want to talk to you about this for a minute. So yeah, there's lots going on here. So there is the, how do we get this thing done, right? Like the hot fix. So what do we need to do to get this out the door, right? Which sounds like the thinking. We've got somebody who's got an idea for the app, whatever it is. They're ready to start developing it. But there needs to be a way of presenting it. So you took that on, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is literally, I would love to have like several hours of conversation about this, but we don't have the time at this very moment. But the thing is, so questions to ask yourself might be, and I'm kind of going off topic a bit here, you know, how did I feel about that? Yeah, because I know you pushed your feelings aside to get shit done, but how might you be able to do things differently in future? How might you be able to advocate for yourself? How might there be more of a discussion between you and the other person so that you felt more involved, engaged, and got more of what you turned up for? So that's kind of about expressing your needs and allowing your needs, right, to be met. So that's a whole big thing. I can't go into it too much now, but that's something worth thinking about. So, but you could actually talk about that, or think about talking about that in an interview. When you do the STAR technique, it's like, well, what would you do differently next time? Well, next time I might go in thinking, I don't know, fill in the blank. I would really want to do some development work. So another question to ask might be, what was the purpose of the hackathon? Was it to win with a finished product, or was it to work together on developing code? And did it not matter if the thing was finished?
Yeah. Like for me, that was the experience. I wanted to have the experience to code, in a different environment with team members in a competition environment. But I didn't get that experience. I got another experience, but it was experience anyway,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's something you can talk about, but it's also worth thinking about. Next time I do that, I want this outcome. I'm prepared to sacrifice winning in order that I get some actual development practice in that situation. It's just something to think about, that's all. Yeah. But for purposes of interview, you can talk about this example. It's a really good example. But it can help to acknowledge in an interview situation, I was disappointed because I did want to, like you said to us, I did feel a bit frustrated. I did want to do some development, but I decided, I know that you said the person said, we need this, we need that, but you still decided to do it, right? I decided that the thing that mattered most in that situation was that we worked as a team and got it done. So you frame yourself, as you kind of have done already, as I decided to pursue that route. And we did this, and we delivered the presentation or whatever. Sorry, I want to give Louisa a chance to. Is that all making sense to you, Lauren?
Yeah, it's great actually, because I was asked in my last interview, how do you think that teamwork would look in a development? And in the interview, when you just have that fight or flight mode, my mind went blank and I didn't prepare about the hackathon. So now I'm going to dig into that and prepare an answer for next time. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. So yeah, there are the answers to the questions, but then there's also like when we stop along the way and go, hang on a minute, how did I feel in that moment? Like if I could change direction at that moment, what might have happened? Just to kind of think about it. Anyway, I just want to move on to Louisa because okay, so what did you actually do? Now I've got a bit lost. I said we were going off track, didn't I? So just to recap, this is the bit people find hardest, especially if your role wasn't obvious. Now, Louisa, would you like to still talk about the example that we talked about? Or would you like to talk about something you did in a volunteering capacity? Like we'll skip ahead to this part where maybe you were in a volunteering capacity or at work and you did something, and we're going to find out what you actually did and how to name it. And getting to the point, what would have gone differently if you hadn't been there?
I think
So you can stick with your example, or we can literally flip quickly to a work-related one if you like.
a work-related one.
Yeah.
When I worked, I took on the additional responsibility as seminar coordinator, casting research and provision.
Would you mind coming? I'm so sorry. It's a bit patchy. Thank you. Audio.
The previous incumbent proper content to. And it took me a while to get started because he hadn't left any instructions. A lot of the template documents and seminars were stashed away in his personal document drive.
Right.
And I think this isn't very efficient. And I need to find time for getting the templates moved somewhere more central. So I realised because I'd had in the work I was doing, my day job involved a lot of work using version control systems, where you update a script in such a way that it doesn't stop other people working on it at the same time. Or I can use that to have the document templates lodged on the main intranet. So they'll always be accessible to anyone who's got the right access privileges.
Great.
I realised that made it a lot easier because if I could do the seminar coordinator role for a particular week, I could just easily pass on to someone else.
Yeah.
When I eventually had to step down altogether, it was a much smoother transition. It was at the time
Right.
the program's never been better organised, thanks to you.
Perfect. I hope you talk about that in interview.
Yeah.
Especially when you smiled when you said it, because that's like, yeah, that felt really good. And when you smile as you say it, it makes me smile and it makes me think, I am 100% believe you that's what that you made people feel this way, right? So this is great. So you could use this, you could go back over the worksheet and write, kind of work through the format and use this example, for instance, and come up with other examples. So the question we asked basically was, what would have gone differently if you hadn't been there? So it's this is kind of like a prompt to get you to think about the value that you brought, even if it's not obvious to you. It's like, well, I can't see, I think I did something small, but it's like, well, okay, but if you hadn't been there and done that, things would have been very different. Is it still small? What we're trying to do here is communicate value to other people, but we have to understand it for ourselves. Yeah. This is the problem with just writing a CV and going, well, I did this and I did that. It's like, but do you understand what you did? Do you understand the value that you brought? Do you understand that people really appreciated what you did, or that you covered somebody's ass, or stopped somebody getting in trouble, or made something much more smooth, or improved performance? Or do you understand that that's what you did? Because when you understand it for yourself, you can communicate it a hell of a lot better. And when you smiled, when you said they were really happy, not your words, you believed it, and you clearly understand that you did a good job there. So we want this too. Right. I'm going to get to the last little bit, and then we're going to look at a couple of specific examples, and I'm speaking super fast. Okay. So if we've been writing as I, great. Like I said, you can talk about team and we when you're setting the context, but you must talk about the contribution that you made, and your thinking, the contribution that you made, the action that you took, the result of that action, and feedback is great. If people said things to you like that really saved the day, use that. And then the next bit is, what might I do differently next time, or what did I learn from that, right? So I know we've said a lot of things, and mostly it's been me saying a lot of things, but we're going to put it together in one clear sentence. Okay, and I'll copy this into the chat. So this is the basic sentence. I did something so that something changed, which meant it mattered. Or it meant, sorry, that's actually, you should say the outcome. But it did matter, right? Which meant that something changed for the better. Yeah. So I did something so that something changed, which meant things changed for the better. It mattered. For instance, I was the one who kept asking why we were building it that way. Turned out nobody had checked the assumptions. Yeah, it could be nobody's checked the requirements. This could be somebody's given you a design and said, well, work from that. And you're like, okay, but what happens when I click this button? Do we need that button? Or I noticed two teams solving the same problem differently. I connected the teams and saved 3 weeks of work. Nobody was taking responsibility to make a decision, so I did it. I documented it, and things moved forward. We weren't left dragging. So none of these are about the tech. None of these are about JavaScript. None of these are about Python. None of these are about spreadsheets. These are about what you as a person saw and what you did about it, and owning that for yourself and communicating it. Okay. Now, we've done a bit of live coaching, which has been great, but I would love to jump on an example. So Lauren, sorry, we're getting to it very late in the day, but was there something particular you'd like to address? Lauren sent me her resume and a job description that she's thinking of applying for potentially, right?
Yeah, but something that kind of happened yesterday, I feel is more pressing
Great.
for me, if that's okay.
Oh, of course, whatever. No, this is good. I want stuff to come up, right?
A few weeks or in January, I applied for a role and it's to do with education and technology. So it's a perfect blend of my new career and my old.
Yeah.
But the course leader made a suggestion we could do a course like this at this level. It's a really high level. It's not the level I'm at, and I'm willing to grow into the role, but I'm also, I feel like, have I misled them in my ability, or I want it, I really want to take it, but I'm just worried.
That's really interesting. Worried. I mean, that's big. Somebody suggested something and you're worried, and trust me, I'm not. Like, I'm just trying to really encapsulate it quickly. Why are you worried? What's worrying you?
Well, it's like kind of like a dream role, because like I said, it has elements of my old career and my new mixed together.
Yeah.
It feels like something so big to me. But I just like, I'm aware that I'm very new in this tech scene, and that is what keeps coming back to me, that you're so new at this.
Okay.
And I suppose my LinkedIn is there for everyone to see. I've been honest about my experience. I've just in the middle of a boot camp, so they know that. But yeah, they want me to step up quite a lot.
Okay, Louisa, what's your take? Thank you, Lauren. So I'm absorbing everything you said, but I'm interested to see if Louisa has any thoughts. Otherwise, I'll jump in.
I think that, Lauren, you've got quite a lot on your plate right now. So remember to take your own advice about remember to delegate when you can.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So think about where your energy is going, I guess. It's also interesting. Thank you, Louisa. That's a really good point, because like you say, what do I want to take on? Sorry, but this is what we talk about a lot in coaching, and also just some other resources that I can talk about. But is what do you want to spend your energy on? You sound excited, quite frankly. And then you said, well, everyone can see my LinkedIn. Well, not if they haven't looked. You have to share it. That's the context. And maybe if you think you're capable, then maybe you are. Or maybe it's too big a leap. This is something that needs thinking about. But I think what I'm hearing is some excitement. Firstly, that somebody has seen in you that they think you could do it. Secondly, the excitement in yourself that you would like to do it. And then there's another voice going, yeah, but I'm new. Yeah, but I don't have, yeah, but. Okay. So this can be partly reframing, believing in yourself that maybe you can do certain things, or maybe this isn't the first time you've done some of this stuff. Maybe you've done this stuff before. You just need to reframe it. And which is kind of the exercise we've been working through. And another part of it is looking at just the fear. Yeah. And what might need to change for you to do that thing. Like Louisa says, maybe you don't have the energy right now. Maybe that's not what you said, sorry. But maybe you look at what's important. What can you delegate? What can you give up to make room for the things that you want? So yeah, thoughts?
Yeah, I think that you've both, thank you, Louisa and Atty, hit the nail on the head, because like 3 weeks ago, I was looking for opportunities, and so I signed up for an internship, signed up to be a volunteer, signed up for this teaching opportunity, and now that all three have come at once, and now I feel like, oh, I don't know what I can do and if I can do it. I'm sort of in
Yeah.
analysis paralysis.
I'm going to talk in a minute about something, and I mentioned bonuses and things like that. So thank you for sharing. I'm absolutely not cutting you off. I'm just conscious of time. So thank you. I'm always like, Louisa knows this because we've worked together before. I always want to just like dig into everything, and I want to hear everyone's opinions. And so, Louisa, is there a particular thing you'd like to talk about quickly? And I know we've gone over time, so if anybody wants to jump off, that's fine. Or we could go for another 5 minutes if you want to continue.
I don't know. Have you ever had to deal with a slightly wacky question in an application? So I've got one of the jobs I want to apply for was advertised on Indeed, and it said they're going to ask the question as part of the application, "What's your favourite film?" I did already discuss with Chat GPT because I find it hard to narrow my film preference down to just one. So I've got a short list of 8, a bit like this time and this. And I said, okay, here are my 8 favourite films. What do you think I should use?
Okay.
Because they'd already explained to me, and I pretty much sense that they not just want to know what your favourite film, simple one word answer, that's it. No, they want to know why you want it. You've got to obviously come up with how this film displays really examples of team leadership or teamwork and overcoming obstacles. Something that sounds relevant in a work context. Not to say, oh, it's really funny or it's really scary. And
Okay.
I'm not going to list all the films. It seems so. You thought Wizard of Oz was the best one too, I think, but that's not very original. Everyone likes Wizard of Oz. I was going to say, could I use Hotel Rwanda? So that's probably slightly more original. I've only seen it once. I might need to remind myself everything that happens in it. But that's about problem solving and an array of hope in an otherwise very dark period of human history.
Okay.
This is really, really interesting. Lauren, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I would feel the same as Louisa. It's a really tough question but what I would think about, like you said, is what's the question under the question? So
Yeah.
when they ask for their favorite movie, what are they really trying to find out about you?
Yeah, perfect as well. Yeah, I think you both said some really, really good things here. The film is irrelevant, right? They don't care. I mean, if you happen to say the same film as the interviewer, then yay, job's yours. But yeah, like you say, the question under the question, and Louisa, like you said, what is it about the films? So, I mean, my personal thing, because I kind of get a bit rebellious when I get asked questions like this. It's like, well, I don't have a favorite film, but if I had a favorite film, it would be made up of this lead character and this situation in this film and this, something in this film. So yeah, exactly. It's how you think, why you think. And also, I think maybe it's a bit of fun as well, is to show off your personality. So I found it really interesting that you talked about showing about teamwork and things like that. If you, it's difficult for me to say because I'm not the interviewer, but if it was me, and I would want you to tell me why you like the film, not try and fit it to a work context necessarily, because it's probably coming in the middle of a lot of other work questions, right? So I think it would definitely be a really good time to show some personality. I like this because it made me feel good. I like the scenery. The dialogue was snappy, whatever, it made me laugh. I thought this was a particularly funny moment in the film. This is one of my favorite quotes from the film, because a lot of interviewing is about building an emotional connection, which I talk about a lot in coaching as well. And I don't mean you're holding hands and crying. I mean, you say something that makes the other person go, oh, right, okay, oh, I get it. Or I've learned something more about your personality right now. I'm connecting with you as a person. We're not talking about JavaScript frameworks. We're talking about what you like to do for fun, right? So in the old days, it might have been, do you have any hobbies? Maybe their version of that is, what's your favorite film and why? So it doesn't necessarily have to be, you don't have to force it into a context where you're talking about work-related stuff. But again, it's how you approach the question. Like Lauren said, it's a question with underneath the question, why do you like that film? What do you like about it? but again, we can talk about this some more. We have come to the end of the workshop. We've done a lot of stuff on the side, which has been really great. I'm really happy. But I would like to know if you kind of got what you came for at this point. I've
Yeah.
kind of given you some starting points rather than we've resolved everything. Is that an okay place to be for you?
For me, yeah, I've got loads of things to work on and to rework my resume and prep for interview, like lots of examples and the thought process. So yeah, I feel like it's been really valuable. Thank you.
You're so welcome. And I hope that you can understand the value that you bring, because I'm getting so much from you, Lauren, from everything you've said. I know there's so much more going on, and this is a short call. What about you, Louisa?
Yeah, thanks. You've given me quite a lot to think about, and I keep in mind with the applications I make this week.
Okay.
I'll let you know how I get on.
Okay. So, what I'd love to do is two things. Was actually three. Okay. All right. First of all, I have a resource called the Visibility Vault. It's just a series of 10 scripts that can help you to express yourself in certain situations, to sort of promote yourself without feeling braggy or awkward. Second of all, I'd like to invite you both to a one-to-one call with me if you would like. So I'll send you the link for that as well. And we can just dig into something that you want to dig into, and it will be an hour, 60 minutes. And thirdly, I've already mentioned this to Louisa, I'm launching an AI version of myself and I'm looking for testers. So if you're interested, Lauren, I will message you about that on LinkedIn as well. But you've got a lot on, so I'm just dropping that in there. Yeah, any takeaways from the call and any feedback for me? You've kind of given me some already, but if you've got any feedback, testimonials about this call, that would be really helpful to me.
No, it's been really productive, Alan. Thank you.
Great. Thank
I
you.
think things changed. Previously, actually, when I spoke to you, it's been you and me, but having someone else's perspective been really rewarding.
I totally agree. Yeah, thank you both. Yeah, I should say thank you both so much for contributing so much. It's been incredibly useful and really nice. Lauren, any parting thoughts?
Just I think really highlighting, the value that you bring, because sometimes you think about your actions and because you're just doing them and you're living them, you don't think about the impact on other people, even, small or big. So that's something I'm going to take away from today.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you so much. I will send you a copy of the recording. Brilliant, thank you. And I'm sorry we went over, but it's because we were having such fun, hopefully. I was. All right, really lovely to meet you, Lauren. Lovely to see you again, Louisa, and keep in touch. And I'll be messaging you later today. Do keep in touch though. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.